US firms could invest in North Korea and Kim may get security assurances. The EU's billion-dollar deals at risk in the Iran nuclear deal and unauthorized transfers siphon funds from Mexican banks. Hello and welcome to today's edition of Mexico News Network's Breaking News Business. I'm Elliot Bullman. Let's go to the information. US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said on Sunday that the US would allow American private sector investment in North Korea if it complies with President Donald Trump's demands for denuclearization. Pompeo also hinted that the US might assure Kim Jong-un he can stay in power after any deal. If a deal is reached at or after the summit meeting between Kim and Trump, scheduled for Singapore on the 12th of June, Pompeo said on Fox News on Sunday that private sector Americans, not the US taxpayer, could help build out the energy grid that needs enormous amounts of electricity in North Korea. Americans could also help, he said, with investment in infrastructure and agriculture to help feed the North Korean people. Lindsey Graham, the South Carolina senator, said private investment or sanctions relief for the North would be the best money we ever spent. Pompeo met Kim last week in North Korea for the second time, helping set the stage for the summit and securing the release of 3 Americans who the Pentagon said left hospital on Sunday. Asked if the US was in effect telling Kim's regime change will be off the table if he meets American demands, Pompeo told Fox, "We'll have to provide security assurances to be sure." Trump hailed progress with North Korea on Twitter on Saturday, writing, "North Korea has announced that they'll dismantle nuclear test sites this month, ahead of the big summit meeting on June the 12th. Thank you, a very smart and gracious gesture." In other news, Washington is reimposing strict sanctions now on Iran, which were lifted under the 2015 international deal to control the country's nuclear ambitions. And now the European Union is scrambling to find ways to safeguard huge business deals with Iran amidst the threat of US penalties. Since the deal took effect in 2016, major European firms rushed to do billions of dollars worth of business with Iran, and now thousands of jobs are at stake. Many of those firms now fear their business ties with the US could be at risk if they continue to do deals with Iran past a November deadline. There's an existing EU blocking statute from 1996 aimed at countering US sanctions linked to communist Cuba. Now, EU officials say they're revamping the statute to avoid the latest US restrictions on firms doing business with Iran. But there are doubts about the statute's legal power. According to Reuters news agency, Shell and some other European firms with big operations in the US prefer to push for US waivers on a case-by-case basis. US authorities have imposed hefty fines on banks for processing Iranian transactions, including UK-based Standard Chartered, HSBC and Lloyds. France, Germany and the UK all say they remain committed to the nuclear deal with Iran and to expanding business ties, provided Iran sticks to its commitments. Before the imposition of punitive sanctions on Iran in 2012, the EU was Iran's biggest trade partner. In 2011, Iran had a big trade surplus with the EU. Trade slumped in 2012, but has been climbing back up since the 2015 deal. EU exports to Iran in 2017, goods and services, totaled $10.8 billion, and imports from Iran to the bloc were worth $10.1 billion. The value of imports was nearly double the 2016 figure. Most EU imports from Iran are energy-related, more than 75% in oil and other fuels. While EU exports to Iran are mainly machinery and transport equipment, followed by chemicals. But trade with Iran makes up just 0.6% of the EU's total global trade. Iran's main trade partners are the United Arab Emirates and China, which account for 23.6% and 22.3% of the country's total trade, according to the European Commission. Moving on. An as yet unknown amount of funds were sucked out of at least 5 Mexican financial groups through unauthorized transfers in recent days, a top central bank official said on Friday, while stopping short of calling it a cyber attack. Lorenza Martinez, head of Banxico's payment system, said it was still unclear how much money had been fraudulently transferred, and she refrained from naming the affected institutions, which could include banks and brokers. Slow interbank transfers since the end of April and terse statements by authorities have led concerns in social media that Latin America's second biggest economy could be the latest victim of cyber attacks that have hit central banks and financial groups around the world. Martinez said that the central bank's domestic spy interbank transfer system that moves trillions of dollars each day was not compromised, but that the problem had to do with software developed by institutions or third-party providers to connect to the payment system. Martinez refrained from calling the incidents in Mexico a cyber attack. At this time, we can't reject any hypothesis, she said. It was something done on purpose, but how it was done, we're in the process of finding out. Martinez said that no clients had been affected since the transfers hit accounts of financial institutions in the central bank. The funds had been wired to accounts that appeared to be false, she said. This was all for today. Thank you for staying with us. I'm Elliot Bullman. Remember to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+, and log on to MexicoNewsNetwork.com for more information on Mexico and the world. Until next time.